Welcome, everyone. Welcome to our show. We're here back for another episode, Adventures in Business Live. Mandy, how are we doing today?
Hi, Amani. Happy Monday.
Happy Monday. Happy Monday.
I feel like the audience will be happy to know that Amani told me no cursing again before the show. I feel like you're worried about this one.
Ooh, do I need to be worried?
No, but I might slip it in there just for you.
Yeah,
I know. I'm just kidding. Okay. Amani, I am great. You know, there's a little red flag warning. I'm on the outskirts of it. Like not out, I'm on the outs of the inskirts of it. So from 4 p.m. today until 4 p.m. Wednesday, I've got a red flag warning, and it's all over Southern California, San Diego. But because the wild winds that took over LA last week, we just took this one a little bit more seriously. So we got a go bag packed. We have an evacuation plan ready to go.
Okay.
I'm not going to be around on Wednesday. Neither is my husband. So we're dropping our dog off somewhere just in case. So they, so we don't have to rely on people to evacuate with her. But the fires have been real tricky.
Yes, very bad. So just so people who are outside of like Southern California, explain to everyone what a red flag warning is. And hello to Taylor Smith in the chat. What's up, Taylor? How we doing?
Hey, Taylor. We love our Gen Zer. Hi, Taylor.
Yeah.
Great podcast. She has the Z thing, everybody.
Yes.
If you're in case you're
Agreed.
looking for some good generational content. Red flag warning. So if you are in a red flag warning area, it's just the conditions are prime for a fire. So it means low humidity, high winds. It doesn't mean there's going to be a fire. It just means the Mother Nature conditions are you're prime for a fire.
Okay.
So be safe. Watch your
So
brush.
Mandy sent me a text message last night as the football game was ending. And so I'm a Washington Commanders fan, and it has been a long 25-year journey to get to the success that we have seen this year. So it is particularly notable. It's just a good time to be a fan, and I'm going to enjoy the ride. So that was probably the highlight of my weekend last night.
Yeah, Amani, can you talk about it? So tell everybody, you're going to the playoffs. And the owner sold the team, and all of a sudden you're in the play. What's the story there? Because I feel like there's more to it.
We had an old owner who was not a good person, and he destroyed the team. The fan base eroded. Sold the team probably about, let's say, April of 2023. We got new ownership group. Then we got a new coach this year, a great, amazing rookie quarterback, Jaden Daniels, and he's doing well. We're exceeding expectations. We already are in the playoffs. We won a game. Last night was a playoff game. We won one game, so now we're on to round 2. And so, yeah, we're here, and it's very exciting. Hello there, Gabriella. Good to see you in the chat.
Hey, Gabby.
And yeah, so we're on to play Detroit this week. So that'll be exciting. Saturday night.
Ooh, Detroit is fun to watch right now.
Yes, they're
They're
fire.
super fun. That's going to be great. Okay. One more thing before we get to our guests. What rituals do you have for your football watching? Do you have any superstitions, rituals? You wear a jersey?
No superstition, no ritual. I'll follow along with some beat writers and fans on like Twitter or Discord. And I do that all during the game. And then I watch my favorite little podcast before and after. And that's it. Yesterday I was pretty chill because I don't know, it just was. So it was good. So we'll see this week, because as the stakes increase, my heartbeat increases too. So I'm trying to stay cool, calm and cool.
Good luck with that.
I know. Good luck. And then the only other update I have, since I always forget to give an update, is that So pre-launch for the book is live.
Oh, yes, that's right. That's
Yes.
right.
So now you can get the book on Amazon. You can order one copy. If you want to order multiple, please do, because I'm trying to shoot for the USA Today bestsellers list. Um, and that's just been everything. I did my final edits for the audiobook last week, turned those in. So here we are. We're just going down the home stretch now.
Amani, the cover is beautiful. It is
Thank you.
so beautiful. It is orange. It's got the headphones. It's in rhythm with the style of
Yes.
it is so rad. I love it. Can you remind everybody again the title of your book? Do a little
Yes.
self-promotion here, friend.
Yes. The title.
Okay.
Wait, you know what reminds me? We need to add our little commercials to our episode. Remind me to ask you about
Okay.
that after we go offline. The
Yeah.
title is "The Quiet Storm: A Historical and Cultural Analysis of the Power, Passion, and Pain of R&B Groups."
Ah, it's
Yeah.
gonna be an anthology. It's gonna be
Yeah.
an epic music anthology. I cannot
Yeah.
wait. And I know you sent it to me last week, and so I'm gonna start reading it on the airplane on Wednesday.
Oh, so I'm
Mhm.
sure I'm really can't wait to hear what you think. And starting to do some interviews and podcasts, telling the stories. I did a master class, which is a reverse interview last week with two of my closest friends in life. So we are here.
Awesome. Well, speaking of somebody that knows a thing or two about a masterclass, I feel like we should get to our guests. What do you think?
Let's go. Yes.
All right. We have an amazing human on the show today. She is the CEO of Rebelle Communications, a TEDx speaker, which I saw live and in person. It was spectacular.
Ooh.
She's a top political analyst, an advisor to some of the top C suite leaders in philanthropies, politics, business, and around the world. She is a self proclaimed street cat, which I love. We're going to have to dig into that. And
Oh,
she knows a thing or two about being an entrepreneur. Laura Fink, welcome to our show.
yes.
Oh,
We give you a welcome and we give you a round of applause. If you couldn't hear, hopefully you hear that. Yes.
wow. I am not used to this. Such
Yes.
a warm welcome. Thank you so much for having me, Mandy and Amani. I'm so excited to be on this show with a couple of experts in their field. So just thrilled to talk to you all today. And I don't have a football team because I'm a former Chargers fan. So go Commanders.
There we go. Yes,
Oh,
there
that's
we go. I
great.
love
Go
it. Yes.
Commanders.
Winner. Good, good. We're glad you said that. Um, Maybe my first question, and then I'll let Mandy go, is I'm curious as to, because I'm a former college soccer player, how has your participation in being on the varsity volleyball team in college helped you in business and life after college?
Ooh.
Well, obviously, you're used to doing hard things and you're used to not having things come easy. And I was not, I nowhere near the top of the roster. I was a specialty player, a role player. I have very long arms. I'm defensively quite good at the net, but I wasn't our kill specialist. So I had to learn both how to lead on the court and also how to follow. And so that those two qualities, when you are, you're used to sort of being the big fish, and then you go. And our team, we were small but mighty. We ended up being top 8 in the nation for our D3 volleyball team. Our little non-scholarship team did pretty well, and we had great coaching and great players. And so I learned a lot from that experience in terms of the importance of chemistry on a team. And it's something I ask when I watch sports. I now look for, because it's that undefinable quality that goes beyond the statistics, and is how do the teams, how are they connecting in the locker room? And so those are just a few of the things. And I'm not alone when you talk about women in power. Like the vast majority of them have played a sport, and many in the C-suite have played a sport at the highest level. So great, even if you're not going to end up, as most of us will not, a professional athlete, to have that experience.
Very well. Great answer. Over to you, Manny. Lead us off.
Well, I'm going to put you on the spot for a second. And I remember the first time we met. And if you don't remember this, that's okay. But I want to share this story because I was thrown in a great way by it. So the first time I remember us meeting was at Pure Indoor Cycling. Do you remember this? Is this coming to
I
you at
sh-
all?
Absolutely.
Okay, good. So we were doing an event. It was during my book launch. It was for Women's Entrepreneurs Day, and it was right after class, and we were sweaty and glowing and feeling great because everybody had just had a good workout. And you and I were chit chatting, and I said, "Oh well, what do you do for work? And you said these exact words to me. I actually wrote them down on my phone then. This was so good. You said, I position women to step into their power and lead. I was like, whoa, who is she? And I remember thinking, this person is awesome. I've got to get to know her. Well, then, you forget and you lose touch or whatever. Then a little less than a year later, I went to TEDx San Diego and I was in person and you were on the stage. And I was like, I have got to get to know you. And then, I followed you on socials after that. But you have this command about you. You have this presence about you, and you are helping so many women lead. So I have two questions. One is the TEDx experience. Can you tell us about that experience from applying to it, and then a little bit about your topic?
Sure. I mean, in terms of the execution, I could write a book called How Not to Do a TEDx because I definitely did my TEDx hard. And some of that was because I actually had a non-traditional path to TEDx. I did not try, I tried out, but in a very different way. I was asked to speak at a workshop that ran adjacent to a TEDx Women that had happened a couple of years before. And it was sort of like they had the primary speakers on the stage, and then they would have a break, and you could select a workshop or a workshop speaker that you wanted to go and see. And so I did one of those breakout sessions, and mine was, I'm proud to say, very highly reviewed. And so then that sort of got me on the big stage. And I was excited. I was super prepared, but because I was a professional, I think sometimes people tend to overestimate how much freedom you need. And so TED has a very specific process, and it's rigorous, that they put you through in terms of deadlines and presentations, etc. And God love the TEDx organizer who gave me the freedom, which I'm a contrarian, so I absolutely loved it. And then I realized that even though I'm a media and communications professional, this is a very specific skill set. So I did everything wrong. I did everything wrong from, late preparation to, there's actually a science of memorization. And if you do not memorize in chunks and allow that to marinate, if you don't allow it enough time to marinate, then you will actually, your brain will not remember. So I walked onto my dress rehearsal stage the day before, and I drew a hard blank. And one of the things, and I had to walk off the stage, and then I have to walk off the stage knowing that, oh my God, I could do this, execute this level of failure in front of 500 people tomorrow. And what had happened was the memorization had not marinated. I did not allow for that 48 hours for the last chunk of what I was talking about. And what it taught me was that I had to have a plan to fail. And that is something that I take with me, because I was like, okay, if this happens tomorrow, what are you going to do? Because you can't flee the scene. And so I actually prepared what I would do if I drew a blank, because I did have it memorized. I did know it all. I was emotionally connected to it. And because I had that plan, I did not fail. And that is something that I take with me to this day. I learned hard and the hard way about the science of memorization, and about why you need a plan for when you fall down on the ice, for what it's going to feel like, and for what exact steps you're going to take to move forward. So, and my TEDx, it went off, I think, decently without a hitch. So I got lucky, but it was a real hard 48 hours, those last 48 hours, and was something that I definitely did to myself.
I would have no idea. So I rewatched it this morning. I would have no idea that just 24 hours before you delivered that speech that you had drawn a blank. It was flawless. It was so good. It rhythmically, I watch a lot of speakers. I'm a speaker. Rhythmically, it was right. Even your jokes landed so I had no idea that happened. That's super amazing. And I love what you're saying about having a plan to fail, because I think we all know we're going to fail, and we know we're going to get up, and that's how we learn adversity. But having a plan when you fail, I think, is really, really important. I want to switch gears here for a minute with planning to fail as an entrepreneur. When you're coaching entrepreneurs, or you yourself as an entrepreneur, what have been some of those failures that you've dusted your slippers off and gotten back into the game with?
Well, I think for me, I never really was consistent in my business development. And
Mm.
because I would get a lot of referral business, I think I relied heavily on my strengths, on like sort of the power of my personality and the strength of my work. And I expected that to carry me. And I think the failure was not that I ran out of business, it was that I didn't earlier define what work I wanted to do. And so
Mm.
then for many years, and I started my first business at 25. So I've been, like I said, an alley cat, a street cat, an outdoor cat for a really long time. And I would say that one of the hard failures of my business was not pivoting earlier to do the work that I loved and to acquire the clients that I wanted to work with. And for the most part, I've been very lucky and haven't had to work, with clients who I didn't believe in. But I would say the type of work that I was doing would have shifted much earlier if I had if I hadn't had kind of a failure of vision and belief.
Mm. That's
So
smart. Yeah.
to follow up on that, what was your previous kind of business or market you were going after, and what did you step into that you really love now?
So I got in. So my first job out of college, I worked in tech, but I always wanted to work in politics because I was really interested in public policy change and where the power was at. And so the way it's, politics is one of those places where you can get in on the ground floor. You just have to do a lot of grunt work. And so I was prepared to do that with my fancy college degree, and I was ready to do the work. And so it's sort of like if the floor is dirty, pick up a broom. Well, what I didn't understand was much like many organizations, they kind of had a track for different people. And as a woman, they would ask you to do the fundraising. And so I did fundraising for a lot of years. It's something I deeply respect, and also something that is, I was happy to learn, but also sort of knew it wasn't my calling and what I was aligned with. I'm a message person. I've always been a words person. I was an English major. I write, all of those things. So where I really shine and where I really thrive is in the communications space. But because I would say, years later, someone sort of summed it up saying, be careful where you're useful. And I think I sort of stayed in that lane, and I was afraid to move out of it, afraid that people understood my brand to be something very specific. How do you know me? Well, I might have asked you for money, or you might have come to a party that I threw, or, you sort of know me as affiliated with that. And I will tell you, the brand of fundraisers is like necessarily strong, because for a decade after, people would ask me and send me fundraising clients, even though I had long moved out of that role. But I would say I would take that lesson: be careful where you're useful, because where people need you is not necessarily where your heart wants to be. And you're
Mm.
going to do better work, you're going to grow, you're going to be better rested and fulfilled if you find that lane and swim your way to it.
Yeah, yeah. I love that message. Now, I know you coach and help people with speech writing. What are the most important elements for the best speeches you've coached and witnessed?
Oh, that is such a tough question and such a good question. I would say emotionally connecting with your audience is one of the hardest things to do, because it requires vulnerability. And I think, people sometimes feel that they're doing it well, and they may not be. They may be trying, but it's that unwillingness to be vulnerable and to dig deep into that. And I think also not being afraid to break the mold. Like, there's no there are formulas, but you don't necessarily want to be wedded to them. If you can do something a little unorthodox, if your podium bio when you're introduced goes beyond your, where you went to school and your 3 jobs and your general experience, if it tells a story, people are going to remember that. And I think it's popular now, and I'm glad to see that narrative and respect for narrative is taking shape everywhere. But I find that it's one of those things that's simple to say and difficult to do, because it's much easier to default to the lists, to the, telling people things, instead of allowing them to move through a story and metabolize it and walk through it with you. So the consistency, like the great speakers are all able to tell a story, whether it's 2 sentences or 60 minutes. And those are the people. And what I try with my clients is to get them to move there, because there are a lot of solid speakers who do a lot of other things in terms of information transfer, but they're not transformative in that same way that the top speakers are. And it's really hard to get to that level because there are a lot of people who are really, really good and they don't want to let go of what they're good at. And that this is a leadership trope that happens not just behind the microphone and the podium, but the skills that get us to where we are. Necessarily, some of them need to be left behind in order to acquire the skills that we need to reach the next level. And that's a really hard lesson for leaders to learn. And it's something that needs to be done from, I've worked with extremely powerful people, and I've worked with bus drivers and janitors and other people working for a voice on the job. And that's true of every single person who I've worked with at every level of power.
Interesting. One more follow-up, and then Manny, I'll go back to you. Besides fundraising, what skills have you to leave behind to get to your next level?
This is easy, Amani. Perfectionism.
Okay, tell us. Yes.
The lesson I have to keep learning over and over again is that perhaps my perfectionism led me and got me where I am, but also acknowledging that alongside it has held me back, and it is certainly holding me back from what I want to do in the future. Because a meticulousness around perfectionism and a lack of comfort with a sort of messy first draft in whatever we're executing, you are not going to be able to get done what you need to get done when you are frozen, or when you are so focused on like the wordsmithing the final draft of the speech, or practicing, your podcast answers before you come on the pod. There is a law of diminishing returns, and there is an opportunity cost to focusing on the perfect. And I have to work on that.
Great.
Probably till I'm dead.
Okay. Great answer. Shout out to Janine Lefford, who's in the audience. Thank you for joining us. Good to see you also. And you see, Manny, how Laura said messy first draft, but I remember Anne Lamott says shitty first draft. So that's my one curse word for the
Amani, welcome to the curse club. Yeah, you did it. Sometimes the shitty first draft is the best draft.
Yes.
What I really love about what you said, Laura, is making space. Yes, you can be good at all these things, but you don't have to do all these things. And as soon as you leave some things in the past, you're clearing the decks and making space for new skills to be developed. So I really resonate with that. I love that. While we're on this leadership conversation, I want to ask about women and leadership, and why so many women tend to be the supportive person in the background or tend to sit on the sidelines. Like what do you think is preventing women from being at the table? Or what do you think is preventing a woman from raising her hand to lead?
Women are rational creatures. We know what environment we live in. We know what's rewarded and we know what's punished. And so we tend to build our lives in alignment with the culture. And this is true of men too. But I think in particular, with women aspiring to positions of power, we are encouraged to take what I like to call the number 2 spot, that does everything behind the scenes, that makes the CEO look good as, his chief of staff, or who is a transformative CFO, but has all the qualities necessary to be in the top job if they wanted to be. And I think the punishments and rewards of the culture encourage us to be in particular lanes. And I think it takes audacity and a little bit of rebellion to break out of that. And also to recognize that you possess the qualities that are not just, you're not behind the scenes because you're not qualified or able. You just might be a leader who's a little bit different. And it just might be that no one has acknowledged or recognized that you could be the number 1. And I think what I like to walk through with my clients is, why do you think that is? And there's a number of reasons. And a lot of times it comes back to that usefulness. Like if I had a number 2 who was phenomenal and made my business hum, I wouldn't want to lose them in that position either. So that, there's some rational reasons why we are sort of kept in the lanes we're kept in. And what I try to encourage leaders to do is to acknowledge that and break out of it.
I love that. And I want to hang here a little bit more for entrepreneurs, right? People that are at corporations, at associations, and they might be the number two right now, and they want a seat at the table. How do they get the seat at the table? How do they make that transition?
I think, so I'll tell a little background story. So one of the ways in which I broke out from my fundraising role and transitioned my business was I was sitting with a client of mine who was a member of Congress, and we had her pollster on the line who was also a woman, and we're going down, and it wasn't my first time, looking over a poll, but it was my first time hearing such direct commentary. She looks down the list and she goes, "Oh, your district loves a bipartisan consensus builder. So that's what you are." Now, I will tell you, it was what she was. So it wasn't like we were playing Svengali here. But what it said to me was, wow, so I can just say I'm a thing, and I'm a thing, that I have is if I can back it up. Now, I'm not saying do that to be a surgeon or a rocket scientist, but for me, it was talking about going from being a fundraiser to being someone who is an expert in communications, which at that point I was. Because I raised millions of dollars based on my communication skills. So I think part of it is saying it to yourself, is acknowledging your skill sets, is acknowledging the ability that you have to reposition into that role, and to start telling other people that that's what you want. And making that public acknowledgement, I think, is scary at times because there's risk involved. Because what if you don't get it? What if I acknowledge my dream and people laugh at me? And I'm not saying those things are not going to happen, but I will say that it is something that you have to do in order to get where you want to go.
Now,
Powerful.
what is the most common area of development that you are finding yourself having to assist or coach your current clients with? And I'm thinking like 2025, with all the onset of social media, having to always be present, having to be able to speak on a dime. Like, what's the kind of common area of development that you have to coach people on more now than you did in the past?
One of the things, often I'll work with people who are experienced in front of a camera, but these cameras and these eyes are very different than the skill than like a television lens. You have to be different. You have to, and this because you do it. Everybody likes to throw around the word authenticity, and it's a great word. But I also find that with my clients, finding their authentic selves is a process, because what has been required of them is a performative person who is unflappable, who is unemotional, who is, this sort of archetype of a leader. And digging in and even finding and understanding what it is they could reveal to be more authentic is an experience. So I find that I'm called upon to do that more, as opposed to like the spit and polish on, vocal tenor or timbre or pause, that this is not tactical. And there is still some of that, but this is really about having an understanding of who you are and not who you have been called upon to be, especially in front of the lens.
Some real soul searching there.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it can be fun, man. You dig in a little bit and sort of you like yourself. So, figure out what parts those are that you want to reveal.
Yeah. Or being comfortable letting them shine. You're like, oh, I just saved this for my immediate family. I didn't realize I liked sharing this with other people too. And that's beautiful to bring that out.
Go ahead, Mandy. Keep going. Keep going, Mandy.
No, I mean, what she said was really inspiring. Really inspiring. We're talking a little bit about communication, and you obviously are a communication expert. So what do you see as faults in communication right now? What are 2 or 3 things people can do better when they are communicating?
Well, I would say just getting into the zone. So we're on a podcast, and I want to say, like, there's a statistic that something like an enormous number of podcasts don't exist after 1 episode, 2 episodes, 3 episodes.
8
So,
episodes, yeah.
And I'm sure part of your, like 100% of your success in a podcast is the fact that you kept filming, that you were willing to be a beginner, that you, I'm sure, have watched yourself grow in terms of your skills of interviewing, in your skills of banter, in your skills of connecting with your audience, and allowing yourself to be a beginner, but particularly in public, is what stops like the vast majority of people from doing anything. They don't want to be bad. And I always say to my clients, like I was talking to a candidate for a city council in Arizona, like I was a couple of years ago now. And I said, well, what's your biggest fear in terms of our work together? And she said, I'm afraid I'll be bad. And I said, well, that's easy. Let me just tell you right now, you're gonna be bad. You're gonna be bad. So if you embrace the fact that whatever bad is, you're gonna be a beginner. And I actually really enjoy working with beginners more than advanced folks, because they're a little bit easier to work with, because advanced folks hold on tightly, like I said, to what makes them, successful. But that unwillingness to be a beginner, I think, is holding everybody back right now. And so the ability to like walk and stumble and be. So, if I had like 3 tips, I mean, I could give you, anybody that is a speaker can give you talk about timbre and pause and rhythm and, short sentences and long sentences and timing. But I would say, like, you're going to learn because inherently what is good and what is not good. And if you force yourself to do the hard thing, which is to show up and then to watch back your performance, you're going to be ahead of the curve of everybody else. And it's the hardest thing to get people to do.
Why do you feel it's so hard for people to show up? Why do so many people just tap out, in your opinion?
Now I know what question I'm going to ask back at you in our time later.
Yes. And then I have a question from the audience after this. So Gabriella, I see your question.
So I would say, let me speak to what I know of women, since women are who I coach most. I think we have an identity around success. I think high achievers, particularly high achieving women, we are conditioned and trained that our performance is our worth. And that's taught to us when we're very young, and not, it's not, we don't receive it it's not in a negative way, but we associate our value and our worth with our ability to perform and succeed. And when that is the case, you often think, if I am bad at something, then it really threatens our identity and our value as a human being. And so if you can imagine that, it's much, much scarier than I made a bad YouTube video. It's Laura's not talented. Laura doesn't have potential. Laura is not able to succeed in this lane. And this, you find this all the time, across the board. But I find with women, it's particularly acute because we see our value as, as being in the results that we achieve.
Interesting. Okay. First of all, shout out Sarah, one of my former students. Good to see you here, Sarah. Thank you for tuning in. And Gabriella has a question. She says, as a new solo entrepreneur, I need access to the tables to even get the seat. Could speaking opportunities give me that opportunity? She loves public speaking.
Yeah. Talk everywhere you can.
Yeah.
Offer to talk. Throw out invitations. And prepare yourself for a lot of rejection. I think in particular in public speaking, there's one public speaker and 500 audience members or 30 audience members. And so you're a rare bird. And I would say, and sharpen your game. So if what I hear too in the question is, this is something that she really wants to do. So absolutely do it, not just for your career, but for your own personal development, your brand development, your, being a human being walking the earth. It feels like it's something that you're called to do and that you enjoy. So I absolutely go for it.
Since you mentioned that you have the questions you want to ask us, that's a perfect segue. We'll let you kind of get to that segment a little earlier now. So this is the point of the show where we let our guests ask us any question they want to. Nothing is off limits. So as you rub your hands together, who do you want to ask the questions to first?
Amani, scared.
Amani, don't be scared. I actually don't interview very often, but I will say I'm curious. I want to hear about your book because as a child of 90s R&B, I want to learn more. And I would just ask you, who are 3 R&B artists either the titans, the great ones, or perhaps people, that are not in the who are not in the mainstream? Who should we be listening to begin our journey?
Okay.
Ooh, double
Okay.
question. I like it.
So yes, yes. Okay, so first of all, when you think of your favorite 90s R&B artists or groups, who comes to mind? Just so I can get a nice little taste, context.
I mean, Mary J. Blige.
Okay, she works.
90s, we're gonna like I was gonna say Roberta Flack. And I mean, like your classics. Like I like Bobby Brown. Like, and I
Okay.
like and
Yes.
but I guess might consider him more pop.
No, 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 no. Bobby
Keith
Brown.
Sweat, like you name it, I'm
Okay.
gonna like it.
Oh, okay. So you just said Keith Sweat. So
Amani
okay.
just
Oh,
grabbed his
oh,
chest.
we still,
For
we still.
listeners, Amani grabbed his chest and flummoxed. He was flummoxed there for a minute.
Oh, great word, man. Great word. Okay. So Bobby Brown is actually on the cover of the book because you remember the group he was a part of before he was solo.
Before he was so now I feel like this is a quiz I'm gonna
Okay.
fail.
So don't worry. He was a
But
part
I
of
do
he was a part of
New
New Edition.
Edition.
Yes. Okay.
Ooh.
There you go. So check there. So the book just takes you through the history of R&B groups from the 1950s to the mid 2000s. It gives you a history per decade of like the top 10 or 11. The last kind of 15% of the book will share with you what happened to R&B groups, why did they disappear, and what's going to happen next. And it's a very nice visual journey because there's pictures, there's stories, there's my favorite songs, my favorite samples. So that's what the book's about. To answer your second question, like who do we need to know? Oh, that's like I'm trying to see. So I'll say you might know him from singing Smokey Robinson and the Miracles, but what you really need to know is how talented of a songwriter he was. He probably wrote many of the famous songs you love from the 60s and 70s. He probably wrote that and you didn't know. That's one thing that you need to know. Another thing will be I'll pick like the Gap Band. Many of you all know Charlie Wilson from his work with Snoop Dogg and Justin Timberlake, but he was in the Gap Band first. But he makes more money off of his current work than his old work because he didn't have the knowledge about the music business to make good decisions. That's number two. Number three, I say who should you know nowadays, like SZA, her, Alex Isley, who is related to the Isley brothers. Those are three artists that you need to know now. So that's my short answer. We could talk about this for an hour or two, just so you know. And Mary J. Blige, her duet with KC from JoJo, Do Everything, is one of my favorite love songs of all time. I'll just stop right there and let you ask Mandy a question.
I'm not even gonna follow that up. I'm glad we have this recording because I didn't take notes.
Yes, yes.
And for the listener, Laura, in turn, when Amani talked about Mary J. Blige, grabbed her heart.
Yeah.
So we've got a lot of feelings going on here with that question. That was a good
That's what
one.
R&B music is
Well,
about. The feeling,
R&B. There's almost no musical genre that is more emotional, I would say.
Okay, I'm gonna take that little snippet and use that when I go on interviews because people always ask me, "What is R&B and all this?" And what you just said, unsolicited, is a perfect way to describe kind of the genre.
Thank you. Well, I'm happy to be of service.
Yes, yes,
Can't wait for the book.
yes.
Okay, so Mandy, I've got another one for you. So,
Yes.
so going back, I will tell you that my memory of us meeting was at your book launch, and just the context, like. I was red as a cherry tomato after, being in a spin class. Cardio, I'm more of a weightlifter. I am not a sprinter. So it is a struggle to be on that bike for me as an athlete. And I come out just bright red. And this community that you fostered at this particular studio, and then the company that came to show up for you for your book was just remarkable. And I often I often talk about women who do the thing anyway. There's tons of well documented research on gender discrimination. The women who do all the things, even in the face of that, I call unicorns. And I instantly knew that you were a unicorn from that interaction, which you do not expect to be stumbling into unicorns after you hop off a spin studio bike. But there you were with stacks of your books, tons of audacity. And my question for you is, in Born, or nurtured and based on experience?
Oh.
Hmm.
Well, I think, by the way, I got 17 chills with everything you just said. Thank you for that. I loved seeing you with your red face, and I had my tomato red face too. So that was a real bonding moment. Thank you. I've never been called a unicorn before, so thank you for that. And I don't know if it's nurtured or natured. I mean, I think I've got some stuff inside me that a lot of people don't have that I didn't know was not natural to most people. I learned that over time. My mom is total hippie, Joan Baez. So there was a lot of, energy and psychics and looking at your birthday and astrological signs growing up that I also thought was normal till I met other people's parents. And I'm so glad. I was so glad that Kathy K was like that because she's all about intuition. But yeah, I don't know if I can answer that. I think some of it I'm wired, and I think the rest of it I want to learn. I'm really curious, and there's a whole bunch I don't know. I don't know a lot, and I want to learn. I want to continue to learn, and if it gets monetized, awesome. And if it doesn't, if it just makes me a really interesting person at a dinner party, I'm cool with that too.
Well, I think that's often where the money starts, is where you're interesting at a dinner party. And to follow up on that, this sort of audacity that I try to inspire in my clients, that I see like in you out in the wild, when you talk to other professionals, how do you talk about how to generate that and build that and find that?
Yeah, it's a great question. I love sharing with people that when you reveal of yourself, you are disarming your entire community. You're disarming everybody to reveal of themselves. And as soon as you discover that you can be yourself, and like you said earlier, you don't have to be all of yourself all the time with everyone. But as soon as you understand that when you lift that thin veil, that people do wanna know what's behind that thin veil, and they might wanna know what's behind a couple other layers, that it's okay to go with that if you're comfortable. There are sometimes, like, when I'm interacting with, especially in sales, when people, they peel back the onion and then they're like, "Oh, no, 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 I'm not comfortable with that." That's okay. Listen to that. That's okay too. So, there's a lot of gut work. Trust your gut, listen to your intuition. And sometimes revealing all of it doesn't work for you. So then just pull back, and it's that push pull of finding what you're most comfortable with.
And how did each of you, and a question for you both, and whoever wants to go first, how did you move from being an entrepreneur, which is the term I learned today, to an entrepreneur? And what did you do it with a boot on your bum, or did you do it with like, letting your hair down?
Hmm.
Amani, since you have so much hair, I think you should go first.
I think I had a boot on my bum. I think I had no choice. It's time to jump in both feet, and I wasn't quite pleased with the fact that my government job, as they say, was like a bunch of spreadsheets and meetings, and that I'm a creative person, and that was just killing me softly, to take a Roberta Flack song. There you go. So I think that I had to go. It has not been easy, but it's been better. It wasn't an easy journey, but I couldn't imagine what I would be doing if I had stayed. So that's my answer.
That's
Great
good.
answer.
That's a good answer. I love that you incorporated the R&B in there too. Good job,
But
Amani.
So good.
it's from the artist that she mentioned too. So
Yeah,
it's like boom, yes.
even better.
No, it was so money, so money.
It was so funny. Okay, so I think I became an accidental entrepreneur. I was working at Hard Rock Hotel. Was it Hard Rock Hotel? It was 2007. Yeah, 2007. Yeah, I was working at Hard Rock Hotel, and I had a customer ask me, "Can you help me with some sales? Can you help me grow my business?" And I said, "Huh, sure. I've never done that before. Meet at my kitchen table on Saturday." And so an accidental business was born. So I was actually, when you work a normal job as an entrepreneur, you work 8 to 5, 7 to 6, whatever you do. And this accidental sales coaching business started on the evenings and the weekends. And then when I came over to the HPN side of the business in 2010, one of my conditions with the CEO was like, hey, I really, really like the sales coaching, entrepreneurial stuff, and I really want to do more of it. And he's like, do whatever you want. Like, work as much or as little as you want. Just go out and book meetings and live a great life. And I'm really lucky HPN allows me to do that. Also, I have to be an entrepreneur with HPN. You're running multiple businesses there. So I've had a lot of practice at it now. I mean, I've been running my sales coaching business now for 18 years
Mm.
and I've been with HPN for 15 years. So I've been all over trial and error of this entrepreneur world for a while now, and I'm learning a lot. But I think somebody asked me, and I learned a lot from that too, because I now ask people. I think sometimes people think when you're working a full-time job that you're unavailable. And ever since then, I will ask people working a full-time job, like, hey, do you want to be my videographer? Hey, do you want to do this? And maybe they've never done it before, but that might be their foray into being an entrepreneur too. So I don't stray away from entrepreneurs when it comes to that.
Great tip. And I am now taking mental notes for my next set of hires.
Yeah, find them. They're everywhere. I want to, since you just turned into an accidental journalist, which I loved, I want to hang at this broadcast piece that I turn the TV on and I'll see you on CNN. I'll see you on Fox News. I'll see you on News Nation. You're everywhere. So how did your political analyst part of, being an entrepreneur, how did that come into your world? What does that look like? Show us a little bit behind the curtain for that.
Okay, so two different questions. How did I
Yeah.
get there is a long and involved answer that involves something horrible that I made the best of. So I was pre-Me Too 2013. I had been sexually harassed by the first congressperson who I worked for. He eventually became a mayor 8 years later and was, continuing his bad behavior. I felt like I had the ability to come forward with documentation that he'd been on this ride for a long time. And I felt like the women who were sort of coming forward anonymously didn't have that leverage because they worked for him. So it turned into a real national political scandal. I was called upon to do interviews and go on TV talking about something I never wanted to talk about and certainly did not want to be my brand. However, I did get noticed by one of the local affiliates on ABC here in San Diego, and the news director, he asked me to do political analysis because he could see that I could speak on camera. And part of the privilege that I had that I was leveraging, and part of the reason I did what I did was because I was like heavily resourced. I was educated. I had all these things, all these advantages in terms of my position and ability to stand up and talk about, and try to get rid of them, which we did. But that was my entree. And then, I was a behind the scenes person, and the fundraiser, politicians don't like to talk about the fact that they raise political money. And so that is an unseen, invisible operation. And it really taught me that I had the ability to not work behind the scenes for someone else's benefit, that I could be the sort of a leading on my own and the principal in my own business and in my own life. And I did have my own business at that point, but it really caused me to understand that I could do something different. And so I have been doing political analysis on television ever since. And I've been doing national for, 6, 7, 8 years now. So it has taught me that to not expect applause, because the nature of television and the nature of television that I do, I tend to go on networks where there is significant opposition. Obviously, someone who disagrees with me in the box next to me, but usually the host and often the subject matter. So I have learned to not expect applause and to not not blink when people don't like me or don't appreciate what I have to say, because there are, in all of our lives, that is true. We will have people who don't agree with us. We will have people who don't like us, and we will be in positions where the questions are difficult to answer.
So how do you maintain your sanity, maintain your self-worth when you recognize that people don't like you? Because that's one of the things that holds so many people back, is they're worried about what other people think of them. So how do you manage that?
I think about this quote from Joan Rivers, who was, if you know anything about her history, one of the first female comics, and as a comedian, you're going to have an audience and you're going to have people throwing tomatoes. And she says, "Yeah, a lot of people hate me, but I can fill stadiums with people who love me."
Mm.
And so I think about, how can I fill stadiums with people who love me by being myself.
Okay, so thank you for that answer. Now, if we go back to Massachusetts, and you pronounce it Wellesley, right? That's how we say it?
Woo, yes, you're on a roll, Amani.
Thank you. So we're going to go back to Wellesley, Massachusetts, as you're graduating from college. And you're going to talk to Laura from then and give her advice based on everything you've learned so far in life. What advice would you give your younger self?
It's so trite. Trust your gut.
Trite
You
but
know
good.
what you're good at. You know what you're good at. Don't wait for people to tell you. Don't wait for people to choose you. Choose yourself earlier.
Choose yourself earlier. I think that's a good
Mm.
model. Mandy, over to you to kind of close out the interview and everything. We could keep talking for hours. I just want to let you know that.
I
We've got a
know.
long other list of questions that we couldn't even get to, but go on, Mandy.
I'm with you. I know. This is so good. Okay, I have two final questions completely unrelated. So I'll do the hard one first. You were, like you just said, first of all, I am so sorry that that happened to you with the congressperson and with the mayor. I am so sorry that you were bullied and sexually harassed. Nobody deserves that. So thank you for speaking up about it, but I'm sorry that happened. If there is somebody out there that is listening to this right now and they are going through that experience and they are worried about speaking up, or they are worried somebody might not believe them, what advice do you have for them that maybe you wish somebody would have given you, or just through living with that experience?
Well, I would say you have more power than you think. I make no promises of the legal system or corporate outcomes because I think the deck remains deeply stacked. I would say the reputational damage that you're probably anticipating, depending on the situation, is probably less than you're guessing. And so take comfort in that. And please, please tell people. Tell people initially, document it, write it down, do all of the things that, may not occur to you when this happens. And then get a bunch of people on your team. Talk to a lawyer outside of your company and figure out, how to navigate this. Treat this like a strategic situation and get the emotional support that you need, because this is deeply damaging and corrosive. And the problem is that we want to be these little warriors for justice, but we've just been like kicked in the teeth. And so you need to be able to get the emotional support that you need, and from friends, from family, from professionals. So like, put together your team and know that you are worthy of that team, and that team wants to help you.
Excellent advice. That's excellent. Thank you. Okay, completely switching gears. Final question. I want to do a quick flash fire with you. So I'm going to say a word and I want you to answer the first thing that comes to mind. It doesn't have to be just one word. It can just be whatever answer you want, but the first thing that comes to mind. Okay, you ready?
I just want to first say, this type
Yeah.
of thing makes me want to throw up, like
Oh,
in a
no.
like nervous way. So
No.
We'll be nice. We'll be nice. Don't
We don't
worry.
have to do
I,
it,
I
or do you have a
no,
barf
we're
bag?
gonna do
You have
it.
a
We're
barf
gonna
bag
do it.
handy.
Let's
Okay.
live what you preach. Let's go.
Okay.
go.
Okay. You ready? Okay. Ambition tax.
Ever present.
Okay. Marble ceiling.
Get a jackhammer.
Oh, yes. That's a good one. Glass cliff.
We can fly.
Woo! Nelly, that's good. I just mentioned three really interesting terms I never knew before, but that Laura mentioned in her TEDx talk, that is not only informative, it is heartwarming, it's hilarious. And if it doesn't inspire you to get up and do something immediately after, you might be dead inside. So thank you for being here today. Thank you so much for your knowledge. Thank you. If you are not following Laura, what a fun follow. Not only does she make your brain bigger, but there's gardening tips. There are procrastination workout tips on there. And she greets you most days with a beautiful view. So Follow her on Instagram, Laura K. Fink. Go to her website, Rebelle Communications. That'll be all in the show notes if you're listening. And follow her on LinkedIn. And just, Laura, thank you so much for everything you give to the world. Thank you for the human that you are. And thanks for being with us today.
My sincere pleasure. Thank you so
Yeah,
much
this
for
is
having me.
awesome.
Yes. Okay, we'll give you a round of applause. We're going to put you in the green room, so hold on real quick.
Thank you.
Okay, Mandy, we are done for the week. Who do we have to look forward to next week?
We've got Caesar Worm next week, and
Okay.
he wrote a great book about addiction. He is a commercial vice president at IHG, and I actually met him in Berlin, Germany last year. I got his book. I listened to it the whole way home, and he talks about things in the hospitality industry we need to be talking about. He talks about anxiety, he talks about stress, he talks about addiction, consumption, and he's an awesome leader of salespeople. So we are honored to have Caesar Worm next week on our show.
Okay, so that sounds fantastic. Thanks again to Laura for joining us. She gave us so many great nuggets. Thank you for everyone in the chat there. Taylor's with us. Sarah, my old student, we almost got a little emotional when Sarah turned in her final exam and left because it was so sad because she's such a great student. So thank you for tuning in. We're glad you love the show, Sarah. Gabriella, thank you for joining us. And remember to rate, review, subscribe to the platform you're watching or listening on. Share with a friend. And with that, we will see everyone next week. Take care and have some fun.
Have some fun. Bye, everybody. Don't forget, comment on our posts. We love hearing what you have to say on LinkedIn and Instagram.